18th. So I will call this meeting to order. We are a bit late at 5:08. We did have a closed session previously, but I don't think there's anything to declare at this time, just as of yet. So I will ask the board members if there's any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest.
None.
Hearing none. Okay, item 3, Madam Secretary, is there any preliminary matters that we need to go through?
No.
I don't believe so. Very good. Okay, and item 4, which is a motion to approve the agenda. Board members, is everyone happy with that? Very good. Member
Ken,
Rose,
second.
is there a second?
Second.
Ken, thank you. All in favor, approval of the agenda?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so item 6, we don't need, or excuse me, item 5, we do not need to do. We are in item 6, which is the public session. And which brings us to item 7, which is an update from Inspector Detachment Commander Ward. Terry, this is such an exciting part of the meeting for all of us.
Hang on, here we go. So my mistake, Todd, when we had talked previously, I was thinking I was doing the first quarter stats, but we already did that back in April. So yeah, the second quarter stats won't be out till the end of this month. So anyway, but what I do have is I just kind of backpedaled a bit and pulled some stats for the month for May, just to kind of show you what's going on, just kind of give you a snapshot. So for the month of May, starting May 1st to the 31st of May, we had 922 calls for service in Orangeville. So, I mean, it's busy, right? There was 32 mental health calls. The officers laid 78 Highway Traffic Act PONs. We had 17 warnings for traffic violations. We put in 35 hours of foot patrol, and we had 3 COVID-related calls where 2 charges ended up being laid. So, and we'll just touch on a couple of staffing changes for the next little bit. So first off, Staff Sergeant McLagan's been seconded into the Central Region Crime Unit for 4 weeks. So wow. He come to the OPP, he opened his mouth and he got pulled in that he's got some crime experience, right? So he's working Central Region Crime for till the end of June. So sitting in his place will be Sergeant Jay Moore. So Jay will be our acting staff sergeant. No concerns there at all. I mean, Jay's very competent, so it'll be some good experience for him.
We all know Sergeant Moore and think highly of him, so that's excellent.
Exactly. And then we've had a couple of other shifts here and there. So Detective Sergeant Terry Padden, who is our crime sergeant, he's been pulled back to region as well to do an acting staff sergeant crime position. So sitting in the crime seat for 3 months will be Sergeant Steve Phillips. So another Orangeville officer. Yeah. We've had a couple of other movements. So currently Constable Steve Roy is doing a 3-month acting sergeant position on a platoon. And Constable Ryan Catt is doing a 3-month acting sergeant position as well on platoon. So those are just some of the staffing things that are going on for the next few months. Our 9 recruits have landed. So they've been assigned with their coach officers, and you'll start to see them out and about and get them involved in different things, get them in the communities. I mean, with 9, it's a little tougher than if there were 2 or 3, but it would be nice to maybe have them here and there pop on just to meet the police services board. I don't know what kind of arrangements we can make there, but we can look at that moving forward. It's kind of nice to, you know, hear their backgrounds and where they come from and a bit of diversity that they bring. And what else was I going to touch on? Oh, and the Black Cats. I spoke with Mr. Sheehan today, and he is saying that the order should be in by the end of the month.
Good. That's excellent.
So that's pretty much what I have, bearing any questions.
Good. Board members, any questions for Inspector Ward? No? Okay, I do. Just out of curiosity, Inspector Ward, have you thought about where you'll deploy the Black Cats, and what is the process for that? Like, without revealing where they'll go, yeah, I understand that that's a key part of it, is we don't want people to know where they are, but is there a process for how you'll determine where they go? Candidly, I'd mentioned to you before, and I won't go through it again, but there's a list of streets within town that we continually
and that's what I'm going to use. Yeah, and that's what I'm going to use. After our last meeting, when we had the presentation and we kind of talked about it through council and I started to make a list. And so, I mean, once we get them and we get our officer up and trained on how to deploy it and how to get the stats off it, we'll start going through that list. And I mean, you and I can have a conversation at that point as well. And we can kind of prioritize, like, okay, what do you think's number one? What's number two? What's number three? What's number four? And we can kind of decide, okay, let's put it here first. And like, we'll have two, right? So we can kind of say, okay, what's the two highest priorities, and we can get some stats from them, and then we can kind of adjust accordingly. So once we get them and get our person trained, then you and I can have a conversation and we can kind of say, okay, let's look at where we think is the highest priority to put them right off the hop.
That's great. And if I may, let's say you put it on Smith Street. I'm not sure there's a Smith Street in Orangeville, so that's perfect street to have. Hypothetically. Let's assume that the Black Cat rolls out no information. Like, in other words, hey, the perception was this was a major problem. There isn't actually a major problem here. Life is good here. Would we release such information to the public? No, we wouldn't. Okay. Nope. Well, the reason I ask is because it would make that community feel like, oh, I know you thought you had a problem, but the reality is you don't. And this is the data to support the fact that you don't.
So that would be one of the things where we look at if we get continuous complaints, right? Because again, you may hear about it before I do. So at that point, I have no problem sharing the data at a police service board meeting, right? And if people see it, they get it. If not, you all would have the data that you could say, well, wait a minute, we've deployed at this point for this long, and it's not showing that we have a problem. It's one of those things that we have to all work together to kind of make the citizens understand that, hey, we're taking you serious. Like, it's a serious issue, but we did a study and it doesn't show that there is a problem there at this time, right?
Got it.
So not to say we won't come back to it later, because obviously that perception is people are still going to think that vehicle driving 45 is driving 140, right? But those are the things that we can kind of say.
Makes perfect sense to me, for sure. You mentioned the 922, and you also kind of gave a little bit of color commentary on the 922. It sounds like you're surprised at that number. Did OPP have a number in mind they thought we might be? There's no
indication. There's no set benchmark or anything like that. When I pulled that stat, I was like, wow, like that's a lot of calls in a month, right? 922 calls for service. That's a lot. So times 12. That's a lot of calls for service. So, but again, we're getting into the warmer season, right? With May, June, July, August, September. So the calls for service are going to increase for sure.
Yeah. Do you think it's because of reopening too?
A bit. I mean, people are getting antsy, right? So when the nice weather came in May, more people started moving, more things started happening, which ultimately results in calls for service for us, right? So it's kind of a spider web. There's a lot of things you can say that would cause that increase in calls for service.
Very good. I'll just keep going, as it didn't look like other board members had a comment, but the 35 hours that you did for foot patrol, I just love that you do that. Did you get feedback from any of the citizens that you ran into on the street when they were out there? Or people, what's the reaction? Are they genuinely glad to see that folks are there? Or what's happening?
It's always positive, right? Any interactions we can have is positive, right? Even to the point where with the nice weather now, you try to encourage the officers that if they're driving down Broadway to roll their window down, right? Like, There's not wave, talk to people. That we want those interactions. Do they always happen? No, you can't always have them. But at the end of the day, I mean, we have to bring that community policing back around, that visibility piece. So we want the officers to engage, and anyone that goes out on foot patrol, especially during the daylight hours, they're going to engage. If the public talks to them, they're going to engage in conversation. And that's any of the foot patrol I do on my walkabout Wednesdays and some of the places I've been. Everyone's been really good, really fun. I like to talk to people, and they're very engaging. So it's all positive, nothing negative.
Very good. Board members and to yourself, Inspector Ward, I actually received a call last week from Chief Superintendent, Regional Commander Dwight Peer. And Mr. Peer was very kind. He just literally wanted to check in and get the pulse and see, from a board perspective and from a politician perspective, how are things going? What were the thoughts, and where do we need to do better? And it was just such a thrill that unsolicited, someone in that level would take the time out to call Orangeville and have care and concern about what was happening. So we certainly did have a very good discussion. I complained about your salary, Inspector Ward, told him that you were deserving more. And, yeah,
I was going to say, I guess I should have asked you before I gave your cell number.
In all sincerity, I certainly shared that the town was well serviced, and we're kind of getting used to each other, is the way I position it. And there's been some things about reporting that I think, as citizens and as councillors and as police services board members, we're learning. But on balance, just very, very pleased and appreciative of your efforts and the work with the town. And as a gauge from the officers, I hear nothing but positive things coming out of that office. So I certainly appreciative of your efforts.
Well, and I appreciate that, Todd, and I appreciate the board members too. I mean, it's a good board. We have a good board here, and it's good to get engaged. It's the engagement piece and where we can kind of work together to make the community better. And when you speak of Chief Peer, I've known Chief Peer a long time, and he's a very caring man. And so it's nice to hear that he did that, because that's I would expect no less from him. That's the type of regional chief superintendent that he is. Like he actually cares about the communities, and he cares about the members and the boots on the ground. So
it's very good. As a challenge, he did mention to me, and it was just affirmation of a comment that you'd made, Inspector Ward, and that is he mentioned that board members and politicians should be reaching out, and if possible, setting up a time to do a ride along, and just to have a better understanding of what is happening, A, with the challenges that your detachment might be having, and B, to kind of have that dialogue with the officers that are there, and develop those relationships. So I took that as a challenge, and I think that's the second time I've heard that, and we haven't done it, candidly. So
it's COVID's made it a little tougher, right?
It really has, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, by all means, once we start to get out the other side here, I encourage it.
Okay.
We'll definitely set that up, and let's just get through the other side where the officers are a little more comfortable having someone in the car with them as well, right? Because again, right, it's a little challenging for them as well. But once we get to that point, by all means, we'll make sure that happens, and we'll make sure you have an adventurous night.
Well, maybe what we do, we'll wait for your cue, and we'll wait to hear from you on that about when the proper time would be. And if you could, I know Member Rose wants to carry a taser, so if that's at all a possibility,
carry it or use one.
Well, if you're going to carry it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Board members, any other thoughts for Inspector Ward? Actually, I'd be remiss. We did talk, Inspector Ward, about some very private issues in closed. Is there anything that you would feel comfortable with? And if I just led you down the garden path and you said yes or no, sure. There has been some discussions about drugs, and there has been discussions about sales of nicotine within our town. Is there anything that you'd feel comfortable talking about there, or is it just something that we should pass on by?
Oh, no, I mean, we can comment. I mean, anyone that doesn't think there's drugs in Orangeville is very naive, right? That is what our community street crime unit is focusing on, and to date have been very successful with some, you'll see some of the press releases that come out with some of the warrants and some of the arrests and seizures that they've had. Yeah, I mean, not that I'm going to get into specifics, but of course, like I said, anybody that thinks there isn't drugs, and again, there's an opioid crisis in the province, right? And that's the main feature. We get some calls for service in regards to marijuana, and I don't want people to think that we don't take it serious, but at the end of the day, the country itself decided to make that, and the province made it legal, right? So we're not really going to put a lot of resources into those issues when we have an opioid crisis. And that's where our resources are aimed as far as that. The other issue you speak of, which was what I was going to give you the update on, but that becomes a public health issue, which for the specifics have been engaged. COVID again has kind of thrown a loop into that because they've kind of had other priorities other than the Safe Ontario Tobacco Act, which this all falls under. They are aware. Our officers have been engaged as well. So again, it's everyone that needs to be engaged is engaged. The one complaint that we've had is not going the way he wants to see it go, but unfortunately, due to COVID and some other restrictions, we just haven't got those results yet, but it's still on the radar. And like I said, it's public health's area to take the lead on. And I think they will once they get into that position that they can. So
it's excellent. Yeah, very good. Okay. Board members, we have a motion to receive that report.
So moved.
Good. Member Rose, Member Mackin. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, excellent. So I think 7 and 8 are fairly tight. Excuse me, 8 and 9 are fairly tight. There's a human trafficking information, and we had, it's not necessarily about human trafficking itself, it's just that we have put forward the information to receive a community safety grant. That has been done by Mary Lou Archer, who's a special projects officer at the town of Orangeville. Mary Lou didn't feel there was anything additional that she could add by attending this meeting. So I think the report, is enough information for the board simply to receive the report and acknowledge that this grant has been applied for. Is there any commentary from the board, or can I simply have a motion to receive that report?
Moved, and it was an excellent report.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Mary. Could I have a seconder?
Second, Ken.
Okay, Ken, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And then item 9 is the trustee documentation for the Upper Grand District School Board. I think same thing we've got in the letter. Inspector Ward, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Is there anything you want to add to this item? I think we have what we need. But,
yeah, again, it's one of those things that we're kind of waiting to see what the board brings forward to us and how they want to move forward. Our community Safety Services Bureau out of GHQ in Orillia is engaged as far as when it comes to vetting some of the programs and different things that they still think that they want us to offer, right? The difference is going to be is we're not going to have that full-time presence in the schools. They're saying they still want to engage us to come in and do some training, some courses, some different teachings, but they want it vetted to school board standards before we go in and deliver it.
I see. I was confused when you said the board. You're not referring to the Police Services Board. You're referring to the
school board.
School board. Yeah. Sorry.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Board members, any commentary on that? No. Okay. Seeing none, I think we have what we need on this one as well. And if I could have a motion to receive that information.
So move.
Ken?
Seconded.
Thank you, Mary. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So this brings us to item 10, which is the Zone 5 meeting. And this meeting was attended by Vice Chair McSweeney. Member McSweeney, did you want to speak to this item at all? Did we lose Member McSweeney?
I was on mute.
Oh.
Sorry. Yes, just to say that it was a fairly non-eventful meeting and quite short. One of the topics on the agenda was the amalgamation effort, that framework that the ministry has put out in connection with the OPP detachments. So that was discussed. The minutes, I'm not sure if the minutes are, I think it was a public meeting, so those minutes will go public eventually. There was a good discussion there on those views. Dwayne Sprague was present, representing the ministry. Just sort of looking down at my notes. He did give an update on the new CSPA, the new act. I guess the proclamation date is we're looking for first quarter 2022 for the new legislation. And I also think, as he's mentioned a number of times, they've been working on the regulations to go with that legislation. And those will be, I think the drafts may already be posted on April 23rd I don't think they're entering a public consultation process, but they are publicly available. And the regulations done so far relate to oaths and affirmations, suspensions without pay, referrals of complaints, CS&W plans, and OPP, an OPP governance advisory, I don't know if it's a committee or a board. So that was the report, and that was the most significant part of the meeting, which otherwise was fairly straightforward.
Very good. Any questions?
The next Zone 5 meeting. The next Zone 5 meeting is September 14th.
Okay. Any questions for Member McSweeney on that?
Yeah, I just wondered if somebody could amend their directory, because it has Mayor Brown on there, but it doesn't have Andy McIntosh on the list. You know, they divided it all up into the different regions, and they were giving us the latest update on addresses and phone numbers and positions, and ours is wrong. It's incorrect.
That's great. I think that if we could ask the board secretary to do that, that would be terrific.
Thank you.
The other thing I neglected to mention, but which I will, and it's included in the materials, is the Zone 5 financial report dated June 8th. That was prepared by the Zone 5 secretary. It's just a one-page summary of the zone's finances, fairly straightforward. So that is also included in my report and the meeting agenda package.
Very good. Okay. Any questions?
No.
Other than Mary's? No? Okay. Hearing no others. A motion to receive that report from Member McSweeney. Mary, thank you. I have a seconder.
Ken.
Ken,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so now we have item 11, which is adoption of the minutes of the previous board meeting. And this is the meeting minutes from May 18th. I have one question. I'm wondering, before I get into mine, if other board members have questions as well on these minutes or comments? No? Okay, no comments. My comment is on page 30 in the documentation. It speaks to the fact, and I think I'm just having trouble remembering what we decided to do, but item 13 on those meeting minutes speaks to the noise reduction letter by Jerry and Lynn Hipner. And it says that we are going to defer that item to a future meeting. And I don't recall the outcome of that. It was deferred. It was deferred from a future meeting, excuse me. Deferred to a future, no, it's deferred to a future meeting. Yeah, I don't recall the outcome. Does any board members recall? Did we finish this item?
Was it referred to our bylaw department?
Don't recall. It feels like a
I
loose
don't, I
end.
don't recall. I don't know whether the secretary's notes might contain that information.
Those are what I have.
Would it be recorded online?
No, because I wasn't permitted to record.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Was that public meeting not posted on YouTube?
It would be. This is the public portion, yes.
Okay, right.
That's where I was trying to go at.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's
I'm
all
just not-
publicly recorded.
Yeah, I'm just not certain that we've closed the loop with these community members. And
Mr. Chair, what was the basis of the complaint?
I cannot recall their street, but they were certainly worried about
Parkview.
it was noise on the residential street, how loud it is.
They're on Parkview, and they were concerned with loud exhaust and motorcycle traffic.
Okay, so I can maybe close this loop right now. We have put an initiative in place that's going to be, it's actually ongoing this week. It's called Project Quiet Running. And one of our sergeants, Sergeant Shea, has put an operations plan together, and we're focusing on unnecessary and unreasonable noise. I mean, we don't have the ability to measure decibels and that kind of stuff, so we have to go within the Highway Traffic Act to look at the regulations for unnecessary and unreasonable noise. And so that's one of the things we're looking at is, you know, unnecessary and unreasonable noise from motor vehicles and motorcycles. So if it's Parkview, I will add that to some of the areas this week that we do some of our education and enforcement, and maybe we can.
That's excellent.
Kind of close that, and we're going to see how it goes and whether we continue it on or maybe just a week here and a week there throughout the summer, just to kind of bring it back and forth, because we've had complaints from Orangeville, but we also get complaints from some of the other communities in regards to the same thing. So that's why we kind of moved forward with this initiative. So that's, if Parkview, you said that was the street?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the area of Century and Town Line.
That's excellent, Heather. Thank you so much for looking back.
No problem. If I could, Mr. Chair, I would inquire, is there not a noise bylaw? I know Caledon has one for excessive motorcycle noise, and they do have the ability to measure noise, but I'm surprised.
The town, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The town of Orangeville does indeed have a bylaw on noise.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually signed by Mayor Rose.
Oh.
And I know that because I had to go back and reread it. But we certainly have one. I'm just curious, Inspector Ward, what would be the next step? So let's just assume from a public relations standpoint that you do find a noisy vehicle. Is it an education plan? Is that what you're after, or what is there? Is it up to the officer's discretion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the officers always have discretion, but when we put these initiatives into place, we're kind of hinting that we want enforcement, right? So for this week, from it started on the 13th through to the 19th, we're kind of looking at more of an enforcement piece on this type of thing. Outside of these initiatives, then we can, again, it goes back to officer discretion, whether it be an education piece or, maybe the vehicle needs a mechanical inspection, that kind of thing. But when we put these initiatives and these focus patrols into place, where we actually put a time limit on them, like a week or 2 weeks, they're kind of geared towards enforcement.
Very good. So I know Member McIntosh likes to play his AC/DC loud. He would get pulled over.
I can't hear it over my truck.
You want to have a contest, Andy?
Okay, very good. Could I have a motion to receive those meeting minutes? Are we able to do that?
And approve.
And
Yeah,
approved.
and approved too.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you. So I just
So-
want to flip back. So this is item 11.
11.
Motion that the minutes from the Orangeville Police Services Board regular public session meeting held on May 18th be approved.
And
So
that was
moved.
McIntosh had raised his hand, and then member Rose.
Thank you.
Okay.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Very good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we leave item 11, I wanted to quickly raise and dispense with, it's a technical issue, but I think it's nonetheless important if we're being technically correct. In our April 20 meeting, we passed a revised version of our February 23rd public meeting minutes. And the revised version, while on the agenda, wasn't included in the package. So I'm just, technically we can't approve something that's not before us. So the amendments were relatively minor. If board members want, the secretary can refresh our memories as to what the changes were. But I'm satisfied, having looked at what the changes were, that if other members are in agreement, we can just ratify the passage of our February 23rd public minutes, and then we can finalize them for posting.
Okay.
Okay. So do you need a motion to do that, Vice Chair?
The motion would be that the board ratify the approval of the revised February 2021 meeting public session minutes.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Could we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, everyone?
Yes.
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 That's
And,
great. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, did you work through the final arrangements then in terms of communicating with council these meeting minutes?
Yes,
Okay,
yep. Just
excellent,
that
'cause
final vote.
It'd be great to have them on, I guess we're on to July now, but if we could have them on the July meeting for council, that would be fantastic.
I think those February 23rd public minutes were the missing piece, so now we're complete.
Correct.
That's excellent news. Thank you,
Good.
everyone. Okay, so this moves
Well
us
done.
on to item 13, which is question period. Dan or Mona, is there any?
Mr. Chair, you missed 12.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Excuse me. Board member claims for special remuneration. So there was some meetings that were attended. There was a legal proceeding that the vice chair and I attended. And then there was some meetings on May 26th and June 9th. And these, we're looking for a motion to approve these special remuneration claims. Could I have a motion to do so?
Should we separate the
Yeah.
26th, the one I wasn't there?
Mary, don't worry. A claim for you wasn't submitted. So the
Okay.
list of claims that are included in the agenda package
All right.
exclude you. So I think we're good to go.
Thank you.
That's excellent. Okay, so we're back to the motion piece. Could we do that?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Could I have a seconder?
Ken, second.
Thank you, Ken. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay, and then Mona and Dan is item 13, question period. Do we have anyone?
No, there's no one on the line right now.
Okay. Very good. Item 14, there are no presentations. There are no delegations. To my knowledge, of item 16, there are no correspondence. And 17, reports, none. So this brings us to item 18, and Vice Chair McSweeney, I believe you wanted to speak to an item for new business.
I just wanted to remind the board and members of public through the board that the board has been looking at its procedural bylaws over the last little while, led by Member Rose and Member Craker, and that we are almost finished the bylaw review and expect to finish that project within the next few days. And at that point, we will report in public session about the new bylaw. So just wanted to put that out there for public consumption and just raise it in new business.
Very good. I see that if you jumped ahead to 19 for the adjournment, we're also talking about when the next meeting would be, and under new business, we wanted to talk about when the July meeting was there, if we would be meeting. And I think what the board has determined that we will meet via special meeting with notice to the public over the summer, and those dates will be determined through the board depending upon the workload that we have. Is that a good summary, board members?
So not for July and August then, no meetings.
I think we're going to end up having a special meeting, and once we're ready, we'll share that date out in advance. Okay. I don't think I need a motion to that effect.
No.
No. Okay. So then we would be at adjournment, and just before we adjourn, board members, we did not finish our closed session in time to start this open meeting. So I know that Madam Secretary has sent out another meeting request. I think we can go into that early. It'd be good if we could, and we can just finish off the day and everybody can enjoy their evening. So if I could have a motion to adjourn the open session.
So moved.
Be great.
Second, Ken.
Ken, thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Inspector Ward, it's always great to see you. Thank you. I think you can see that we're starting to get closer with the transition, and we're getting tighter, and we should be in a good spot starting in the fall. So we'll look to you for some mentoring, and certainly change our board meetings, and be a little more efficient with you. And
yeah, it's good. I mean, meetings like this are, I feel that we actually accomplish something, right? Like it's nice to kind of go through it and we're not getting caught up. Mr. Chair, I will forward you an email in reference to that thing we were going to talk about in closed, just to kind of bring you up to speed. Okay. And not to be shared, but at least for your knowledge. And I'll also flip you a press release. I don't know if you saw it or not, but we did put a press release out in reference to this Quiet Runnings initiative. So I'll just flip you that too, just so you have it for your own knowledge.
I'll share that out tonight as well. And just last thing, I know we've formally adjourned the meeting, but if people are wondering who are watching or whatnot, the board is still dealing with transition items as we move to OPP, and that's why they're the closed sessions and they're legal issues that can't be discussed in public. But as we can, we will move to our friends with the OPP, and we'll close that chapter, and we're getting awfully close to doing so. So I think that's great. And Inspector Ward, we certainly appreciate your patience as we've been doing that.
Like I said, it's a good board, Mr. Chair, and I believe there's good things on the horizon. So
I think so too. We appreciate.
We just need to get there.
Need to get there. I think we're all very earnest to get there. Okay, very good, board members. We'll see you in the closed session, and thank you again, Terry. Very nice to see you.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Hey, Todd, did you